Loading.
Okay.
Are we live?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, good afternoon and welcome everyone to our first ever East County, San Diego interfaith conversation. This is something we're really excited about, the opportunity for leaders from both the Islamic faith and the Christian faith to visit, talk with one another, and in the hopes of us all getting to know one another better, each other's cultures, backgrounds, and beliefs better, and to be better neighbors. So I'm very pleased that we're able to do this. My name's Noel Becchetti, and my wife Kyle right here. We're just a part of a group that's part of this trying to work together. And what I'd like to do now is introduce the four gentlemen who will be having the conversation together today. Imam Taha Hassane is the director of the Islamic Center of San Diego. Aasim Billoo is the youth director at Islamic Center of San Diego. Brian King is the lead pastor at Community Covenant Church in El Cajon, California. And Dean Soule is the youth pastor at El Cajon. And Kyle and I are lay people who are members at Community Covenant in El Cajon. Okay, here's what we would like to do today in the 90 minutes that we have. We're planning to go till 4:30 if there's enough to talk about for that long. Mm-hmm. What we want to do is take a topic, in this case, the fact that the two most important holidays in each of our faiths, so that Ramadan and Eid for our Islamic friends and Lent and Easter for us in the Christian faith, have just taken place, and they've taken place in this, unprecedented time. I know that word's been used a lot lately, but in this time of pandemic. And so that's had a major impact on us, continues to have. And so we just thought, as a way to begin this kind of conversation, we're hoping today is the first of what will become an ongoing series of these kind of conversations. We'll do them online as long as need be, and if and when the time comes that it will be safe to then begin to meet in person, we would transition and do these in person in different locations. That's our goal and our hope. So we wanted to start with this topic just because these times are so important, and it might be a good way also. There could be some of us viewing who maybe Christianity is a new thing and we don't happen to know a lot about it, or for some of us, Islam is a new thing. We don't happen to know so much about it. It'll be a way to help us begin to get introduced to one another through our most important holidays. So I will let the gentlemen make some brief opening comments, and then my goal is for them to start having a conversation together and just talk this among themselves informally. So this is not a seminar, it's not a speech. This really is an idea to have just a nice, friendly, informal conversation. Now, hopefully, if you're viewing, you also saw the invitation to a platform called Slido. And on Slido, you can put in the meeting code, which is 91852. And if you do that, as you're listening today, if you have a question you would like to put to one or more of the presenters, you can send it into Slido. We'll read it, and then time permitting, we'll be able to verbally forward the question either to the group as a whole, or if you have a question for a specific presenter, let us know that, and we'll do that. Also, I would encourage you, as you're listening to this, if you have an idea for a topic for future conversations like this, oh, I'd love to see a group like this talk about this topic or that topic, send it to us in Slido. We would love to get your input on that. So with that, we will proceed, and I'd like to invite Imam Taha to kind of start us off with some introductory comments about Ramadan and Eid, and then we'll go from there. So Imam Taha, thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Noel. It's a pleasure to be together virtually today. I would like to start with the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. And I am very grateful to God for giving us this opportunity, and also grateful for Noel, Kyle, Brian, Dean, and Aasim, that we are together educating ourselves and our community members about our different faiths. So Ramadan. Ramadan is an Arabic word that means literally the heat, the warmth. Why? Because when Arabs before Islam named the month according to the lunar calendar, the month of Ramadan fell in the summer, and it was extremely hot in Arabia, so they called it Ramadan. When Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, became a prophet, and God Almighty sent down the revelation to him, Almighty God has chosen the month of Ramadan to reveal the Quran to Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. And also he has chosen Ramadan to be the month of fasting. So based on this, I would say Ramadan is the 9th month according to the lunar calendar. We as Muslims, we celebrate our religious celebrations based on the lunar year. So the months start with the birth of the new moon. So the 9th month of the lunar calendar is called Ramadan. During the month of Ramadan, Muslims who are adult and healthy, I mean by adult, every boy or girl who already reached the age of puberty, they are considered adult. Healthy means somebody who is not sick, who can sustain, their bodies are strong enough to sustain fasting. So Muslims who are adult and healthy have to refrain from food and water. They cannot, excuse me, they cannot eat anything, they cannot drink anything, including water, from dawn, early in the morning, before sunrise. And by the way, I have heard a lot of people saying from sunrise to sunset. No, if we wait until sunrise, our fasting is not valid. So it has to start early at dawn until sunset. So this past Ramadan that just ended last week, we have been fasting for more than 15 hours a day. At sunset, we have to break the fast to eat a meal. And after that, we engage every night in Ramadan in a lot of prayers, a lot of spiritual acts. Actually, in our mosques, regularly, we will talk about the difference this year, but regularly we spend, between an hour and a half, almost, to 2 hours, just praying a communal prayer as a community. Ramadan also is a season of spirituality. So in Ramadan, Muslims usually they work hard to strengthen their spiritual connection with the Creator, God, Almighty Allah. In Ramadan, Muslims recite the Quran more than any other time. Also in Ramadan, Muslims donate a lot. So it's time where we express thankfulness to God by sharing the favors that God has given us, the wealth with the poor, with the needy. So Muslims in Ramadan donate from their own wealth to the poor, to the needy, to support any relief or any humanitarian work going on anywhere in the world, locally here in the United States, or wherever there is a conflict, sending their donations through humanitarian organizations and relief organizations to people in refugee camps, to people who got stuck in whatever military conflict in the world, or victims of any type of natural disasters and so on. We end the month of Ramadan with a big celebration. It's called Eid al-Fitr, which means celebration of breaking the fast. This year it was last Sunday, April 24th and May 24th. And on that day, usually in regular times, the Muslim community comes together after sunrise, and they offer a special prayer. Usually here in central San Diego, we do it at the convention center. downtown, or sometimes at Qualcomm Stadium, where thousands and thousands of Muslims show up in a communal prayer. And then after the prayer, we exchange gifts among family members. We congratulate one another. Some mosques, they have their own way to celebrate by having like a carnival or a festival, a lot of food, a lot of gifts, and so on. This is how we celebrate the day of Eid, which means celebration of the end of the month of Ramadan. So I hope that I was able to kind of give a very brief introduction to the month of Ramadan and to the Eid as well. And now I'm going to pass the mic to Brian, right?
Okay, thank you, Imam Taha. What a privilege it is to be with you today, and so glad I got a chance to meet Aasim, and great to have Dean here as well. And again, thank you, Noel and Kyle, for letting us be together here today. I just have to say that over the last, I guess this past year or so, it's just been a privilege to get to know Taha and just to begin this friendship. So let me just say a few things about Easter. It really essentially is about one big day on a Sunday that celebrates the resurrection of Jesus, where Jesus raises from the tomb, and we celebrate the life that represents. It really, though, is a season that begins much earlier than Easter Sunday. Most Christians celebrate a season of fasting, much like you do in Ramadan, for about 40 days before Easter, that begins with a season we call Lent. And that usually begins on a Wednesday that we call Ash Wednesday. And Christians gather together to consider how they are going to prepare for the next 40 days to again prepare spiritually, and to consider all of the things that are open for God to do a work in for us as we consider what's at stake in terms of the importance of the life that Jesus brings to us. So beginning on Ash Wednesday, for example, we will impose ashes. Sometimes people will see the little cross on people's foreheads. That's just a sign that we are committing to the next 40 days to surrender ourselves to whatever God wants to do in us. So many people fast during that time. People have a lot of liberty as to what they can fast from. Some people take the fasting very seriously, about just completely fasting from food or water. But many Christians just fast from a couple of things, maybe just something that they want to give up. For example, I know in our family, for our children, sometimes it's hard for them to not eat all day. So we go vegetarian and we don't eat meat for 40 days. Some people fast from different kinds of, for example, I've known Christians who fast from things like entertainment, or things that would get in the way, things that would normally hinder us from really seeking God more deeply and receiving from God. So during those 40 days, there will be a number of devotional opportunities. Each week on our Sundays, when we worship together, we celebrate what we call the sort of the last days of Jesus' ministry before his death. And all of that sort of leads up then to what we call Holy Week, which begins on Palm Sunday, where Jesus comes into Jerusalem riding on a donkey, and people celebrate who he is. It's a little conflicting, though, and so at some point the crowd turns on Jesus, and then for that following week, Jesus goes through what we tend to call the Passion Week of Jesus, where Jesus is put on trial, and that all culminates on Good Friday. And on Good Friday, we generally gather as Christians to celebrate either a communion service together, or some way to identify with the death of Christ and to celebrate what Jesus accomplished on the cross for us. And then after Good Friday, there's these 3 days that we wait in anticipation for the resurrection, and then we gather on Sunday morning and we worship together, and often culminate Easter with feasting with families and joining fellowship together. One of the things that is interesting about certain traditions in Christianity is Easter, for some traditions, doesn't end on Easter Sunday. It continues on in the weeks following, all the way up until the day of Pentecost, which we celebrate tomorrow in Christianity. And these are days in which we consider and think about all of the things that led up to Pentecost, where the Christians were empowered by the Holy Spirit to do the work of ministry that Jesus left for them to do. And so Easter, again, it's a very long season for us, and it's a great opportunity for us to also celebrate not only our own personal devotion and personal religious faith, but it's also like Ramadan, it's an opportunity for us to give, to serve, to sacrificially love others, and so that we can participate in the ministry of Jesus. It's really the holiest of seasons for us to really reconcile what it means to follow in the teachings of Jesus. So there's so much more that can be said. I want to keep it brief. So I hope that gives just at least a little synopsis. I'm sure Pastor Dean could probably elaborate as well.
Well, I was wondering, Aasim and Dean, you both serve with youth. In terms of just basic background on the two key holidays, are there any aspects for you that apply specifically to what your work with youth in those seasons? Aasim, perhaps you might want to speak to that, and then Dean, you could speak to that.
Thank you, Noel. Thank you, Noel, and thank you, Imam Taha. I think he covered quite concisely what Ramadan is. And Brian, thank you very much for that in detail explanation. I definitely learned a lot. If you see me typing, I am a note taker, so I have a Word document taking notes that I'll be able to reflect on and share. I always get messages from people that later on say they weren't able to make it. And I like to do my youth discussions from events like this. So we'll definitely be doing that in this case as well. When I worked, so I'm originally from LA, and when I worked at Northridge Hospital, we were a UCLA-based clinic. One of my coworkers and best friends over there, Raymond McLaren, was a devout practicer of the Catholic faith. And that's where I really got to see Lent and Easter up close and personal, even going to his house and breaking bread, and vice versa. He did the same with Ramadan. So it's interesting, when the quarantine first became a real thing, and we saw that our Christian friends and neighbors were going to be in quarantine during Lent, it came to mind that, hey, this may be the case for Ramadan and maybe the rest of the year as well. So I think we definitely shared that sentiment. From a youth perspective, I think Ramadan, like the Imam said, it's definitely a spiritual cleansing. It's also it's an opportunity, because when we're youth have so much going on, right? There's a lot of distraction, but we're also busy with work and trying to get into a career and just starting life. That Ramadan is just that once in a year boot camp, as I like to call it in my discussions, to kind of hone in on just our relationship with God and use that boot camp to keep our spiritual fitness healthy through the rest of the year. Just like if we would do a fitness boot camp, I mean, majority of us can't afford to pay a personal trainer the whole year. So what we'll do is we'll hop into a boot camp, sign up to a program, get it down for like 30 days, so much so and enough that we can start doing those exercises, keep up that program for the rest of the year by ourselves. So in a nutshell, Ramadan is huge for the youth. There's a lot of community service opportunities, a lot of things that we put on the back burner the whole year, waiting for Ramadan to come and re-energize and recharge our spiritual body, so to speak. And I look forward to discussing with you all about how that was different this year in the next few moments. I'll pass off the mic to Dean with that.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. My name is Dean Soule, and I'm the youth pastor at Community Covenant, as it was said. And for our context, Lent is something that gets reflected in a number of different ways. A lot of it is dependent upon, for a particular student, it can be dependent upon how that family engages with Lent. So the degree to which a family comes to, say, an Ash Wednesday service or a Good Friday service or other spiritual practices throughout that time of Lent, in large way reflects how the family as a whole is interacting with that. So I know I've heard of certain families where sort of the whole family is engaging in a similar kind of fasting practice together. I know, for instance, Pastor Brian's family does that, and so he's got a few two students, one who is now graduated out, but the other engages in that kind of a practice. But as a ministry, we also do a few different things that are new. We try to encourage students in reading scripture, and so we give sort of a section of scripture to read every day. We also do encourage students to be present at those, the Ash Wednesday and the Good Friday services, and we also during that time when we are doing our youth groups together, we do a very specific series that we are going through, a discussion series where the teaching is sort of focused on a particular topic that is relevant for the season of Lent. And so those are some of the things within the youth ministry context that happens. But of course, there are also opportunities too that exist for service. And so we are always trying to sort of promote some of those, but definitely during the season of Lent, it takes on another opportunity for us to really kind of emphasize that, to get out and to participate in some of those service opportunities. And as Pastor Brian did, I think, a very fine job of kind of giving a synopsis of what Lent and Easter are. And Easter also is, there is a particular day we call Easter, but then also, of course, there's a whole season after that called the season of Easter. And so that actually, I believe it's 50 days, if I've got my numbers correct. And so that lasts, but that's not as known within a lot, especially within Protestant denominations. The denominations such as Catholic or Lutheran are often a little bit more in tune with some of those rhythms of the calendar, but Easter is a 50-day season. And so at Community Covenant, we have been going through a teaching series, and it is, we have continued to say we are still in the season of Easter as we have been teaching. As there are going to be some within our congregation who might not even fully be aware of some of that. So there's some diversity in terms of people's backgrounds that sometimes we sort of have to come alongside and introduce some new ideas in those seasons as well.
Great, thanks, Dean. We're going to transition now into focusing on what we've just gone through in terms of and are continuing to go through in terms of the pandemic. Just a quick reminder, if you're watching and you've got the information, to get onto the Slido platform and the event number, it's slido.com, and the event is 91852. When you get on there, you can send us your questions if you'd like to have a question put to one or more of our panelists. We're already starting to get some questions, so thank you for that. And also, if you have ideas for topics for future conversations like this, please send them as well. So with that, gentlemen, let's make the transition. If I remember correctly, beginning about mid-February and of course into March, things started to grow and then really hit in terms of the reality of this virus, that it was more than maybe just a blip on the screen. And it seemed as if quite rapidly then we went from life as we used to know it to shelter in place, end of meeting in person, and so on. So maybe you can just begin to talk together about what was that like? What was it? What did you go through? As Aasim was mentioning, how did this impact what you were trying to do? And with that, I'll just throw that to the group and have at it. You guys just can begin to talk among yourselves and share with us.
Well, I'll tell you when it became very real. It became very real on March 11th. When it was announced that the NBA was shutting down until further notice.
Yeah.
That's when we were like, if basketball's being shut down, what next?
Yeah. No LeBron.
Vividly remember that, yeah.
Yeah. So
I
if I may start, as you have mentioned, Noel, all of us, we started hearing about the virus, you know, that started in China and then spreading a little bit everywhere in Asia. And to be honest with you, I have never thought about the virus hitting that hard here in North America. But it became the reality. And I remember we had a board meeting on Wednesday, March 11th, late at night, and we decided to close the Islamic Center. So we closed on Thursday, March 12th. And maybe as most of you, we thought about like a few weeks, you know, 2-3 weeks, and we will see. I remember we said, okay, let's close till the end of March, okay? And we will see how it works. And all of us, we know how it worked. So when we closed the Islamic Center, immediately we started thinking about an alternative. You know, we cannot stop the worship, you know? So we started thinking, did any one of us attend any training how to conduct the Islamic Center business, you know, in similar times? Never. So none of us had any experience. So we started kind of like learning while doing stuff. I remember, you know, immediately we started meeting virtually with the imams of different Southern Californian Islamic centers, and we started the conversation. What are you doing? What are you thinking to do? And based on that, we came up with the teachings online. We came up with a lot of stuff online. And then came in our minds Ramadan. Can we imagine Ramadan without opening the doors of the mosque? Maybe the most significant aspect of Ramadan is the communal prayer. So in Ramadan, mosques are packed every night, literally packed. In addition to that, breaking the fast in the evening, usually it's held in different mosques and Islamic centers. Here at the Islamic Center, you know, in regular Ramadan, every evening at sunset, we have between 300 and 400 people literally coming here to break their fast. We cook every day in Ramadan, you see? So, and then we started thinking how kind of Ramadan we're going to experience this year without doing that. But we adopted little by little, step by step. We started learning from our own experiences. And guess what? We had one of the greatest Ramadan ever. Everything was virtual, everything was online, and our community members were very thankful that we kept them connected every single day. Even the call for the prayer for people to break their fast at sunset, we did it live from the Islamic Center. Quran recitation live, night prayer live, teachings live. So people started calling us and texting us that, hey, we don't feel that we are disconnected anymore. We feel that the mosque is in our homes. And this is what we told them. Turn your home into a sanctuary. Okay? Have your own prayer hall in a room, in your home, in a corner. Let your kids decorate that place with prayer rugs, with whatever decorations you have. And then community members started sharing, you know, on social media, sharing their own experiences, taking pictures of their prayer hall at home and sharing it with the community. This is where we pray. This is our new mosque, you know? So it became like something fun to do. And this is what we wanted. We wanted to create this atmosphere, this climate of appreciation, of enjoyment, because, and I'm sure that you agree with me, psychologically and emotionally, people got affected, you know? Yes. People got affected. So how can we address this issue? How can we help our community members to be better, to contribute positively to their well-being, mentally, emotionally, spiritually? And we worked very hard, and we received a lot of good compliments from our community members. In terms of the food, we kept cooking every day, by the way, and community members sponsored the food, and we did drive-through iftar. Iftar is breaking the fast at sunset. So we packed the food, and every day between 6 and 7 p.m., 120 meals were given away. People drive through the parking lot, grab their bag of food, and go home and enjoy that food with their families. We did this. In addition to this, and I will conclude with this, also the social aspect. Yes, Ramadan is about spiritual aspect, but also the social aspect. We realized that there are some vulnerable people, elders, who cannot go out and buy food and groceries. So we did a campaign in cooperation with the mosque in El Cajon, and we distributed more than 400 grocery bags. The value of each bag was between $60 and $70. 400 grocery bags were distributed throughout the month of Ramadan. And also we worked with the MLC, the Muslim Leadership Council of San Diego, to also distribute warm meals. More than 5,000 warm meals were distributed right before and during the month of Ramadan to both Muslims and non-Muslims. We worked with senior care centers, with first responders. Anyone who requested, we contracted with some restaurants in the community. They gave us big discount, and we did this program. And we are very proud and humble that we did that. And we were happy to have the San Diego mayor, Kevin Faulkner, more than a week ago in his press conference, where he acknowledged and recognized the efforts done by the Muslim community during the month of Ramadan, feeding people and distributing meals and groceries. So this is how it was, and we are very happy that we experienced Ramadan and we did whatever God, allowed us to do.
Yeah, Taha, I have to say a number of words that you said really struck me and reminded me of some of the things that we've had to journey through the last few months. I think the first word that this really strikes me is the word learn. We just had to become very spongy. We had to be able to look around the world and say, okay, let's acknowledge that there are many churches out there that were already doing online ministries and were already technologically real dialed into that kind of communication. But for us as a smaller church, that became sort of the immediate learning curve for us, is how are we going to get online and how are we going to stay connected, at least through the internet, to be able to have our weekly worship services together. And so we were able to do that. It was a little messy at first. And one of the things I think that was really important for us, and at least especially me as a leader, is to hear from others like yourself, just learn from others and have the permission to make a few mistakes, but just get there and be there. Don't worry about how good it is or how good the quality of your video presentation is, but just be present. And then that began to ripple, I think, into all the other ways that we do ministry. We began to realize really quick that I think one of the most important things that we learned, and that we're continuing to learn as we wrestle with all of the different viewpoints about how we should begin meeting again, there's this sense that I think we finally are starting to really wrestle with what we believe as Christians, and that is that the church is not a building, it's people.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we begin to really live into that truth, then we begin to realize that the most important thing we can do is start calling people, start having conversations, have midweek Bible studies on Zoom, not just for adults, but for children and for youth as well. And so we just began to sort of collectively just pull ourselves up by the bootstraps and just begin to make every effort we can to make sure that people were cared for and that people were communicated with. So again, many of the same challenges that you had. One of the things that I felt like we would really struggle with is just being able to do ministry to other people on behalf of others rather than ourselves. So, we are very interested in in helping those who don't, don't have the resources. And so being able to, so for example, plug in with some of the Muslim community from here in El Cajon, even just this past week, to help put together food for those who need food, and to do different feeding things, really helped us to stay active in helping reach some of the needs of the community. But certainly, the quarantine really affected us. And to your point, I think psychologically, emotionally, we just really needed the connection. And so we did our best. I can tell you that there are many people who come to our congregation who are still working, and they do a lot of Zoom meetings. And so trying to keep people interested in Zoom has been a little bit of a challenge. Some people love to be able to say, like, I'm just zoomed out. I don't want to be on Zoom anymore. But thankfully, we have experienced, at least in our church, a real commitment to staying in fellowship with one another. And I think what I've observed as a leader is a real refreshing reminder that most of the people in our congregation really care about others more than they care about themselves. And I think that really is the greatest takeaway that we've had from this season. Not just specifically with Easter, but just trying to manage what it means to be connected in a very disconnected, mandated disconnectedness. So I'll pass it off to Aasim.
Sure. Thank you. I would echo everyone's sentiment. I will add to Imam Taha's brief synopsis of the community service aspect. Those meals that were delivered, I witnessed it firsthand, and just how smooth it was. I was quite amazed. And the recipients of the meals ranged from anybody to everybody, regardless of faith, regardless of income status, regardless of profession. It's just, hey, we want to break bread with you. We can't do it in person, so come pick up a meal, or we will deliver the meal to you. Or thank you for being a first responder. Come pick up a meal on us, or we will deliver it to you. And it's just about, honestly, I think breaking bread is huge in just in humanity. And me personally, I love breaking bread with my friends and family. So that was definitely a challenge this Ramadan, because I like breaking bread with people throughout the year, but especially in Ramadan. So we like Pastor Brian said, we had to learn these things. We just had to kind of jump in and start swimming, right? So we came up with creative ways, like the mosque having the drive-through iftars, but also from family to family, where we would have friends coming over or going over to friends' places. This year, what we did is we made little, whatever we were gonna have for the day for iftar at the house, we would send to Imam Taha's house, or he would send me Algerian sweets. And I don't know, I got a taste of a lot more cultures this Ramadan than I usually do. Yes, it was a very beautiful Ramadan, but I'm not gonna front. It was definitely very difficult for myself and for my children. It was very difficult for me to respond to my 6-year-old when she would ask, hey, are we gonna go to youth group this Friday? And I would say, no, baby, we still can't. She would say, what about next Friday? And I would say, no. She would say, what about the other Friday? I'm like, we're gonna go soon, but for now, we're gonna have the youth group sessions online, because Dina, I'd love to hear how you have your youth group structured, but our Islamic Center being as large as it is, we have divvied up and categorized by age category. So we have the young adults program, the teen program, the tween program, and then the elementary program, and then even the babysitting program. So it was a challenge to come up with creative ways, and I definitely could not have done it without Miss Lalia. I wish she was on this call, because she would probably have a lot more to teach us than I do. But she tapped into just amazing resources of hers, and came up with like virtual storytelling programs, virtual craft programs. In fact, tonight at 6 p.m., we have a virtual craft by Miss Emily Dotson. We had a few story times by Miss Kelly Young. And it was just amazing how the whole community, and when I say whole community, I mean the greater San Diego community, not just the Muslim community, came together to help each other out. I mean, we were able to tap into different resources and find virtual tutors, because some of the school districts or some of the schools in the school district were not adept to, or some of the teachers were not adept or trained to teaching virtually. So we needed to find resources outside of that. For the teens, some of the challenges that I faced is a lot of the teens that come to my youth group are social butterflies like myself, or maybe just because I'm a social butterfly, I tap into that quality of theirs. So bringing those youth sessions onto Zoom was interesting, because the first Zoom session, we had about 50 students, and then the number got even bigger. But then I remember about 2 weeks into Ramadan, that number dipped dramatically. And I consulted with my youth leaders if they were seeing the same in their sessions. And that's when I heard this term zoomed out, and which Pastor Brian mentioned, and I totally agree. Like, after being on Zoom calls for work, and these students are doing Zoom with on their meetings or for their class meetings, it's really difficult to not have that physical, that spiritual connection. So there was a point, and I'd love to hear what you did, Dean, but there was a point where we even took a break from the weekly Zoom sessions and made or teachings, I would say, and made like a Kahoot game. Like, I got on Kahoot. It's not .org, but whatever it is, and it's a trivia, right? I heard a lot of the schools were doing it, so I designed an Islamic trivia with Kahoot. And the first session, there were only a few kids that joined, but the next session, a lot more joined, because clearly word of mouth spread, right? That, hey, they're not just reading out of a book on the Zoom session. With that, go ahead, Dean.
Yeah, I feel like we've had a lot of overlapping challenges in that regard. So as I'm looking around, I think everybody on this call is a parent. I'm a new parent, and so I became a parent a few months before all of the quarantine stuff hit. And what I've found, of course, is that everything is constantly changing, and that's what I felt like this whole.
Do you mean diapers are constantly changing?
Well, I mean, everything is changing. The size of clothes you put your baby in, their sleep schedule, their eating schedule, and some of those changes are wonderful when you get to see them open up, but everything is always changing. And so I felt like that's what this whole season has been. It's been one change after the next. And once you sort of find something you think is working, students will get burned out on that, or, Zoom burnout will happen or whatever. And so that's kind of what I've felt like has sort of characterized this whole time. And so we began with, sort of trying a few different things before we eventually landed on doing Zoom calls. Eventually I was inclined to, really find ways to make the breakout rooms possible, where you can actually do small groups. So you can take in one call, you can send people by age and by gender, and they can do their own, small group sessions and all of those things. So we were doing some of that. We were also doing games, but those changed as well, from, trying to do something over the camera to, as you mentioned, Kahoot. We've done Kahoot before. We've done some other similar kind of games where people can use their phone as the controller. But then that kind of lost its glamour, and students were sort of done with that. And then now we've transitioned to doing even shorter games, and just really doing the lesson, because students are engaged with the lesson in the small group time, but it's almost like they would prefer, if they're going to play some kind of a game and it's going to be with a screen in front of them, they'd much rather prefer it be, something on their Xbox or something. And so it's a very odd, series of jumps we've had to make along the way. And at the same time, we've also tried to engage them in other ways. So we've had a lot of content that we've been putting out on Instagram. So different prayers or ways to pray or things to be praying about, like, hey, everyone, let's pray for our first responders today. Let's pray for, the leaders in this arena or that arena, whatever, and everything that they're dealing with right now. So we've been trying to put out that content as well. We've also done some deliveries. So we've dropped things off to students' houses, either like a little goodie bag of, just a little bit of candy and a card or something like that. And we've also delivered thank you cards. This was something we did recently. Thank you cards. It's part of actually a nationwide effort within our denomination where just finding a way to bless the grocery store workers that serve us week in, week out. And, they have to deal with people buying, 2 carloads of toilet paper and all this. So we went and dropped off thank you cards to the students' houses so they could write a thank you to their grocery store worker and they could drop that off. So we're trying to find, little ways along this journey where we can help our students engage in even in bigger ways than just, what we're doing within the youth group context on Zoom. So it's been definitely a journey. And I have a feeling that it's probably going to change in a week and a half or 2 weeks from now again. And so I sort of prepare myself for that. And I don't take it personally that, well, we're bored with this now. And well, we don't like, whatever it might be. I don't take it personally. I know everyone's zoomed out and I know that it's just kind of the way things go. And so we adapt and we continue to be prayerful and continue to stay connected, continue to, of course, call and text and stay connected with people that way. That personal connection is very important. So that's kind of the nuts and bolts of sort of how we've navigated all of this as well.
That's awesome. I'm glad you mentioned that because running a youth group is not just showing up on that Friday night or that Monday night. It's a lot of that checking up on the youth, a lot of that bouncing ideas back from them. A couple of years ago, when I was just noticing that students do get tired of or don't think something is cool just because I think it's cool, I kind of started this youth ambassador program, and every year we take like the most by active, I don't just mean those that attendance-wise active, but those that are active in conversation, bringing ideas. We nominate them as youth ambassadors, and before I instate any new activity, I run it by the youth ambassadors in something that we call shura, which is taught to us by the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, is advice taking and consulting with each other. And I let those ideas come from them, and then I will simply approve them or make them happen. So I think the idea coming from a 14-year-old is a lot more hip than coming from me, who's a parent and more of an authority figure even. So that's definitely a help to us. Using social media as a platform has definitely been to our advantage. So even when Kahoot got boring, I started doing like trivia on Instagram, and I was getting a lot more participants on Instagram than on Kahoot because they're already on Instagram, So when they're swiping from one profile to another, like I think it's truly a blessing and quite creative and clever that we're able to, send little snippets of religiosity while the students are already doing whatever they're doing for entertainment, whatever game they might be spending their time on.
Yeah, we've noticed that as well. A lot more interaction. It feels like through games on Instagram. If we do a quick trivia thing, sometimes we'll do an either or. Would you rather do this or would you rather do that? And sometimes they're just silly, sometimes they're serious. But one other aspect of this that has been kind of a heavier aspect for our students is our high school seniors. They have had sort of all of this, expectation of what their senior year will be like and all of the different activities that go along with that. And, there was, I think, hope at the beginning, mid-March and sort of those first, week or two that maybe that things will get back to normal enough that we could, possibly still do some of those things and even have, our graduation and all of that. And it seemed like that hope kind of just sort of slowly withered away as the weeks wore on. And so I really feel that on their behalf, that just sense of loss, because they can't get that time back, they can't get the year back. And so there are people who are trying to help make, an in-person graduation possible, maybe in, say, July or August, or they're trying to do the same thing with other events. But that's been a huge loss for those high school seniors, particularly that another student who is in middle school or even high school wouldn't necessarily feel in the same way. So
I have a question for the group. The question is, are there any things you feel that you have learned in terms of functioning and ministering in this pandemic season that could possibly change how you function and minister into the future as we transition out of at least the most acute phases of the pandemic? Is there anything you've learned that might actually change how you move forward in functioning and in ministry? Question to the group.
So it's interesting. I was actually having a short conversation with Brother Aasim. I don't know if he's still online, but shout out to our AV and tech team. Without them, none of all of the activities that we did would have been possible. And these guys really stepped up and learned. Like, I hope Aasim's there because I'm gonna make fun of him a little bit. But Aasim's very tech savvy, but he's not very like social media cool, all that. But my guy, he learned the ropes and he learned them well enough to teach them to all of us. Became creative extremely quickly. Knew how to boost and advertise our events. So as I mentioned earlier, the name of Miss Nadia, she helped me put together like these story times for our younger students and crafts for our younger students. And we're doing one today. So when I scheduled that with Aasim, because he's going to be streaming it for me, he mentioned that, hey, when things go back to normal, inshallah, God willing, I think we should still do things online for those that can't make it, right? For those that are far. And the hamsters in my brain started like turning the wheels. There are students that can't come for different reasons, right? There's rides. There are the special needs children that can't get out because we've seen a rise in special needs students becoming a part of our audience. So they're truly benefiting from these events becoming a part of their home.
Yeah, I agree with you, Brother Aasim. What I have learned from this experience is that when we used to do everything on site, only on site, we have left behind a lot of people in their homes, elders, people with special needs who could not come to the Islamic Center. And I believe from now on, even when we go back to our regular business at the Islamic Center, we should always keep them connected through social media, through whatever we have been doing online. We should keep doing that in addition to the on-site program here. So no one should be left behind anymore. Everybody is essential. Everybody is important. And what we have also noticed here, the support of a lot of people to the Islamic Center. As you may know, during the month of Ramadan is it's the major season to raise funds to the Islamic Center. And this year we have been thinking, how are we going to do that? Nobody's going to be in the mosque. Usually we do it like on site, and people are here in the mosque, and we ask them to support and to donate. This year we did it online, and guess what? It worked much better than on regular time. And we have seen people that I have never heard about. Some names donating as little as $5, $10, and because of them, the support that we have received this year virtually from people was excellent. Exceeded our expectations. So if there is anything we learn is to keep people connected, if not physically, than virtually.
Ooh, unmute.
Brian, you have to unmute.
Yeah, I have to echo the same thing. You know, we learned right away, first of all, that people were in a disposition to be more gracious and to be to be supportive. And I would have to say that if I don't know that I learned it, but it was just a refreshing reminder of just how committed and loving our people are. And to your point, more generous. You know, our giving has been surprisingly, miraculously as good or better than it's been. I would have to say also, though, that to your point, we've learned that there may be some things in technology that are indeed better than trying to get people from all their busyness and all of their different lives to come together to a facility midweek, you know, off of Sunday when we were normally worship. And at least my own personal experience is that people are very interested in keeping this going and staying committed to being together with each other online. And, you know, one of the things that Dean and I did really early on is we went out. We have a number of seniors in our congregation, and a number of them come from a specific senior home care facility and retirement home in Spring Valley. And so Dean and I just went out there one day to talk to them through the gates. And we sang hymns with them, and you know, we just learned that there's just a lot of different ways that you can do ministry that doesn't require you to be inside the four walls of a building. In fact, you know, going forward, I think we're going to learn that there are much better ways to celebrate Christian community than just, you know, one little, you know, we say it, us pastors, us preachers, us imams, you know, we preach it from the pulpit that, you know, that, hey, it's more than just Sunday morning, it's more than Friday. And now we're learning that people are starting to understand how important it is to stay connected on a more consistent basis. So it's been fun, challenging, but fun.
And I would echo those things as well. That just sense of creativity we sort of always had to have throughout this whole season. I'm definitely aware of the need to hold on to that, because I think there's been a lot of really good things that have come out of having our creativity muscles exercised in ways that maybe they weren't before. And for me particularly, I have, you know, I'm on social media, but I'm not always, you know, in the presence of mind oh, I should pull out Instagram and I should do this. And that's not my necessarily my go-to thought process. My wife is much better about that, but I've noticed how well things like Instagram and those things just continue to engage students, and how relatively little effort, you know, relatively speaking, you know, it is taking to be able to put something out there on Instagram, even just one thing a day. And yet it's getting, you know, seen by so many of our students. And so the impact, of course, is multiplied by just a very small amount of time. And so I'm learning about some of those things that, you know, again, if I would have just maybe sat down and thought about it, I would have, oh yeah, why am I not doing this more? But yet here we were really forced to do this. And so that's a thing for me. I'm personally going to try and hold on to and continue with.
Yeah, I definitely don't think, at least for myself. So I think Imam Taha is going to create an Instagram right after this session is over. But I definitely don't think we're going to change things by replacing what we had. I think this is a supplement that we've gained, and it's a tool that we will definitely instate to reach a larger audience. And a couple of examples I can give you is when the quarantine first became a reality, which was literally on March 11th, the NBA announced the shutdown. At the night prayer, I was there, and both imams were there, Sheikh Taha and Sheikh Abdul Jalil, and they said, no, the masjid's not shutting down yet, but stay tuned. A couple of hours later, they had a board meeting, and we heard the masjid was not going to be open for the next morning prayer, and we were just like, oh my God, this is real now, you know? So immediately what I did is I tapped into my resources. One of my cousins is a pretty popular imam in LA. I reached out to him to tap into some of his resources and just connect with a few youth directors from Islamic centers over across the nation, just to bounce ideas off of each other. And we did just that. And we decided to have a large national virtual event, which was extremely successful, quality and quantity wise. And we were able to accommodate a much larger number of youth than we normally would, and had a much longer program because, you know, everybody was at home anyway. So they were happy to, you know, they were able to come in and out as they pleased. And then this week with the killing of George Floyd, you know, a lot of racism and police brutality type of conversation started happening. And I'm blessed that the crew that I work with, Imam Taha, Sister Nadia, a lot of my youth leaders, we're very cognizant and very sensitive to the mental, psychosocial, emotional needs of our youth and our congregation. So we immediately started talking about, hey, what, you know, this is something that we need to address. You know, we also want our students to be very safe. We don't want them to, you know, take matters into their own hands and go out into the streets and do anything that might jeopardize their safety or their families. So I went back to that the youth directors group, and we decided to have an online conversation where people could open up, talk about their feelings, ask questions from the experts. I'm definitely not an expert in that field, and I'm not going to pretend to be, you know. And I actually misquoted Imam Taha to you, Imam Taha, when I said we had 150 viewers. We had 1,500 viewers. I accidentally dropped a zero. So yeah, I think this is definitely going to be a something to put in our toolbox for the future as well.
Thank you. This next question is a little sensitive. And it kind of goes more to the core of you gentlemen as spiritual leaders. I'm going to preface it a bit, and then feel free to address it or not address it as you would see fit. One of the realities of our current situation with the pandemic is this is a lot of confusion going on. I'm sorry. And some pretty strong debate. You could even say acrimonious, dramatically different perspectives on how big is this pandemic really anyway? Are there exaggerations going on, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm guessing you're all, you know, we're all familiar with that in various ways. The question is, how does a person of faith address the claims and opinions that the pandemic and its effects are exaggerated? So the questioner, of course, I think has a perspective. And again, it's a little controversial, but I'm guessing this has probably been a reality in your guys' worlds already anyway. Maybe you could speak to this a little bit.
You know, I'll go ahead and jump in here first. I just think that it's so important for, at least for us as a Christian community, we take our lead from Jesus. And so one of the things that we believe is that Jesus always taught us to put others first. And so, you know, any sense that there might be someone out there with a different opinion than ours, that I think it's our posture is to be responsible and to be inclusive and to listen and to be patient with anybody in our care. But certainly we also have a responsibility to keep people safe. And so for those who think that the pandemic is exaggerated, I'm going to allow them to the freedom to think for themselves and to think those thoughts and to be patient with them. You know, if there's a person that's different from them and has a different opinion and says, oh no, this is not exaggerated, we shouldn't be thinking about coming back to church for at least 6 months or a year. You know, we also have to appreciate that there are people out there that also have that opinion. You know, I think that for us, what's most important is that everyone feels included, that everyone feels loved and supported, and that even if we have some disagreements with regard to how serious the pandemic is, I think we all need to be together in this. I think the common theme that we all most resonate with are those comments that we hear when people say things like, we're in this together and we can get through this together. And if we are all patient and we team up and get together and in ways that are again responsible and safe, I think that would be my response. All things to all people, as the Apostle Paul said. Sometimes that is hard, especially when, let's admit, we all come from our own perspective and we all come from our own motivation. And I'll admit that I have an opinion and I have a motivation for how I respond to this. But as a pastor, I think my first inclination is to just to be as welcoming as Jesus would be to anybody and everybody in this particular time, and be patient and loving and serving towards them. And it requires a little extra grace for some people. I'll just admit that.
Thank you, Brian. We also base our view and our action on the teachings of the Quran and the prophetic teachings. As a faith leader, I believe that everyone has the right to think about this pandemic the way they want. But as a faith leader, I deal with the facts on the ground. I believe in science. I trust the scientists.
Yeah.
And my highest top priority is to save the lives of people.
Yeah.
One of the highest objectives of the Islamic legislation is what we call maqasid al-sharia, is hifdh al-nafs, which means the protection and the preservation of the human life. So my responsibility as a human being and as an imam, as a leader in my community, is to do whatever it takes to save the lives of people. I deal with the facts on the ground. And I have heard about some stuff, right and left, whether we call them conspiracy theory, whatever people have been talking about. People are free to believe whatever they want. I have a responsibility towards my community, towards my family. And I am and I will be doing whatever I can to save the lives of people, to protect their health, because there is no way as a Muslim, as an imam, to do anything that might put people at risk or jeopardize the health and the well-being of people around me. This is how I see it, and this is how I've been doing it, even though there were some people outside the community, from within the community, who sent me some videos and some opinions and all that stuff. And I'm like, thank you so much. I have a job to do, and I'm going to do it the way God asked me to do it.
Sure, I think especially conspiracy theories and all that can be fun and exciting, especially with the youth. And then myself, like having that relationship with the youth where I've always had a no filter policy. They're allowed to talk, converse with me about whatever they want, however they want. I keep it very casual just so that they are able to open up. So of course, those type of conversations do come up. I always like to take it back to the grassroots and discuss, hey, so it's not in our hand, right? But what is in our hand? What is in our control? And like Pastor Brian said, what Jesus taught us is, putting those that need us right now and being able to provide for them in whatever capacity we are able to. With the youth, it's usually not financial, it's usually physical, where they may be able to deliver or run an errand for somebody, and just kind of taking mankind likes to be in control, right? So I would try to hone in and help them focus on what we are able to control, and not focus too much on what we aren't able to control. That said, it's extremely important, like Imam Taha said, to allow people, especially the youth, to express what they need to. We don't want them to keep it in, and we want them to know that they are not only heard but listened to, And in the end, just remind them that the ultimate priority is their safety and the safety of the community.
Yeah, and I would also just echo those sentiments and say that, you know, as a pastor and as a leader within the faith community, you know, our actions will affect and sort of set the tone for how as a whole community we interact with the issue. And so if our posture, you know, whatever our opinion about, you know, all of it may be, if our opinion is one of or our posture is one that is needlessly antagonizing, or it's you know, whatever side, you know, somebody might fall on in terms of their opinion, if it's sort of stirring up a lot of problems and trouble and all of that, it casts a certain light on who we are as people of faith. And you know, and is our faith about trying to win an argument, or to feel like my opinion is being pushed, or is it really caring about the most vulnerable, and doing that not just with an eye on our own faith community, but also on the whole community of El Cajon and San Diego, and also out of respect for thousands of people who every day have to navigate a whole lot more difficult situations than we ever will. I can't imagine what a grocery store worker goes through right now when they've got people yelling at them because there's no more toilet paper. I can't imagine what a nurse or a doctor has to go through. I can't imagine what a police officer has to go through, you know, when they're trying to tell people, you know, hey, you need to stay 6 feet apart, and they're just yelling and ranting and raving. The governor, the mayor, all of these people are dealing with so many struggles on a daily basis. That seem to sort of take whatever issues that we may be wrestling with and sort of just ups the ante. And so out of respect for them and for all of that hard work, it's important for us as I think people of faith to say, hey, we're with you. We want to support you. We want to care for you. We want to say thank you. So here's this small token of our gratitude. Here's a thank you card to say thank you. We see you. We appreciate you standing at this grocery counter day in and day out, you know. So little things like that we can do to be a witness of what our faith means.
Great.
I got to say, I also can't imagine what our imams and pastors go through. I'm not an imam or a pastor. I'm a youth director. I'm a volunteer. So I will say to the listeners, please appreciate your faith leaders. I've seen a little bit, just a snippet of the 24/7 work that these ladies and gentlemen do. I've seen my imam carry 250 and then, because of demand, carry 500 cupcakes back and forth from Vaughn's to the Islamic Center for a drive-through, for the sake of my kids, for the sake of the community's kids. And I'm not a sentimental person, or maybe I am, but yeah, certain things get me emotional. That was definitely one of them, man. I'll tell you that. So it's not easy doing what you all are doing, and I appreciate that. And I really implore, it's not even a request anymore, I implore the viewers and those listening to please show your gratitude and pray for those that serve and help us serve our faiths.
Thank you.
Good word, everybody. This next question is practical, and with the proviso that I'm sure the answer or answers is still in process. The question for you is, how do you think your congregations will decide when and how to reopen, and with what restrictions? Brian, you have to unmute.
Yeah, we're already sort of in that process. I think that for us, first of all, we get a lot of good guidance from leadership above us in our denomination. They provide for us some really good things to think about. And I would say that right now, again, I think the guiding words for us is human responsibility. You know, so much of I think what we're dealing with in culture right now is the difference between human rights and human responsibility. And so I think that for us, first and foremost, we just have to be as responsible, as thorough, as open, as just again, continuing that sort of that learning, nuanced, creative spirit that we want to stay open to, so that we can, do it as best as possible. I don't believe any church is going to get it right. We're all going to probably, fumble over ourselves a little bit, but I think most important is that we have to have a sense that, first of all, be sensitive to everybody. So not everybody's going to be able to come back. Not everybody's going to want to come back. And so we have to continue ministry and provide for them. And for those who are ready to come back, we have to make sure that we pay attention to what, the governor says, what the mayor says, what all our local and state authorities tell us, are important. We're certainly going to comply. I think we're going to be able to, provide masks and provide self-screening, or, some kind of screening. And we're going to have to figure out how to social distance, all those things that people are generally talking about. We're going to have to figure that stuff out. And so when we can, and when we can do that responsibly and safely and in a way that honors everyone, then we'll be able to put specifics to that. I think we'll probably be able to meet outdoors within the next couple of weeks. I think we'll be able to meet safely outdoors, probably not indoors. We'll probably have way less people at church than we normally do. But all those things are okay. I think as long as, again, as we stay focused on being responsible and including everybody, and making sure that everyone knows that they're being heard and being cared for, and that their concerns are important to us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you, Brian. I would like to echo everything you have said. And I know I like your place. You have a nice yard outdoor. So maybe we can borrow it one day and do our service over there, if you don't mind. Just kidding. So yeah, I've said to my community, we're not excited to open as soon as possible, but as safe as possible. Of course, all of us, we are eager to see our mosques full of worshipers. We want that day to come. And we are, as you have mentioned, Brian, we are in the process of putting in place the protocol. We started also the consultation with the imams of Southern California and imams here in San Diego, and we are working together under the leadership of the MLC, Muslim Leadership Council, because we want to cooperate together. And once we are ready, once we put everything in place, at that time we will open the doors and we will welcome people, again observing all the guidelines, social distancing in the prayer. And in our case, it's a little bit different than your case, because in our mosque people prostrate, they put their forehead on the ground. So we have a carpet. One of the guidelines that our authorities didn't mention, and it applies only on mosques, is that everyone should bring his own prayer rag to use it, and then to take it back to his car, her car, or their homes. So the same guidelines, the standard guidelines that you have heard about, we are considering that, and hopefully we will open maybe in the next few days or in the next few weeks. But the most important thing is, when we open, we don't want to put anyone at risk. We want it to be as safe as possible.
All right, Imam Taha, you're teasing me when you say next few days, maybe next few weeks, because you kind of got my blood pressure up. No, I understand the reality. Like I was telling Noel behind the scenes, that I work at the hospital, so I totally understand and realize that it needs to be as safe as possible, not as soon as possible. Because honestly, man, actually one of the youth hit me up today, texted me today at about 11:58 a.m. Or 10:57 a.m. and I was driving down from the base, so I didn't see till a little bit later. And he said, "Hey, when do you think the masjid, the mosque, is gonna open?" I said, we're talking about it, but in my mind, I was thinking, like, suppose we do get a little bit too excited and hasty, and we open it, and then God forbid we have to close it again. It's like we don't want to go through that type of putting people at risk, number one, and just the teeter-totter one of my friends in LA, they did go through that. They opened up a little too soon, and then had to close it down the next day, and then reopen the next day. It's like, I'd rather get all our chips in a row and do it properly. And Imam Taha, I'd love to be part of those conversations. I do have some ideas, but in phases, and we want to be as safe as possible, both physically and spiritually, inshallah, God willing.
For our youth ministry, one of the things we've really been kind of struggling with to figure out, and as we think about the conversation that the whole church is having, our youth ministry often includes, and one of the things that really helps students sort of want to be there is we usually have some kind of a game. Usually it's an interactive game. Sometimes it's something, sports related. So it's more, it's going to involve people sort of being closer to each other. All of the things, of course, that can no longer happen. All of the things that have basically all been shut down, and, until further notice, some of that is going to continue to be. So for youth ministry, there was a lot of questions there because, we're sort of asking, okay, so would students want to come to a certain place or a building for an hour or an hour and a half, and only really be able to do, this sort of 6 feet apart, kind of a social distancing. Because of course, I want to see students and they want to see me and each other. And the last thing that I want to do is, of course, also have to feel like I'm, constantly telling students, whoa, you're too close, stay 6 feet, stay, that's such a, it would be such an irritating dance to play when all I want to do is just be able to be present and listen to students and hear what they have to say. That's where I would want my focus to be. And I would always fear that my focus would keep getting diverted to the issues of safety. So that's kind of one of the tensions that I'm dealing with right now. And I have a team of parents that get together on semi-regular basis, and we talk about some of these, just some of the issues of ministry. And this is going to be one of the big topics that we focus on in this next meeting is, what can we do to help promote our youth ministry in this next season when these restrictions are sort of an ongoing thing. Everybody's anxious to sort of, get back to normal, but, the normal of no masks, 6 feet is no problem, all of that stuff that's still going to continue. And so
That's far.
yeah. So we're wrestling with, even if we do meet in person, that is just one restriction that has been loosened out of 20 others, and so there's a lot of other things that we have to weigh. So
Yeah, Pastor Dean, you've been very creative and clever thus far. I have no doubt you'll come up with great ideas, but I think some things to consider, maybe like outdoor sessions where it's a little bit easier to sit apart. Like, hey, everybody bring your own beach chair. These are the kind of things I'm kind of like conjuring up in my mind. And games like, instead of a ball being thrown around where there's a lot of physical touch, I was thinking things like charades where there doesn't have to be touch, where one person is on stage. And we've done like a Islamic charades or a religious charades. I don't know if you remember, Imam Taha, but I did a youth leaders retreat last year, and we went and took a field trip to different youth groups out in the Orange County area. But the way we started the day was we met at the Islamic Center of San Diego, had a continental breakfast with our Imam, and then we played a game of Islamic charades. And it was fun, man. Like, you just, you kind of, the person that's it or whatever gets up on the stage in front of the audience and kind of just through hand signals or whatnot, does like a circumambulation, and then the audience would guess, oh, that's the Hajj, which is the pilgrimage that the Muslims make to Mecca, right? Or just one creative sister, she also did a bit, an Imam Taha bit, where she got up on a fake podium and recited with a microphone in her hand. And so, yeah, man, I think the sky's the limit. I would say, again, I'm definitely gonna take and consult with my youth as well, because something that I think is cool is probably not cool for the high schoolers. So yeah, I would definitely advise you to do the same. That They're pretty smart. And believe it or not, I also was concerned about them wanting to be close to each other and stuff. But at our Eid fair, Eid is the holiday. I know it sounds like Eid, and it is a day of eating because we've been fasting for 29 days. But I noticed the teens, they were really good about not greeting each other physically, even though a big part of Eid is hugging and the pecks on the cheek and all kinds of crazy handshakes. But our youth, they were really good about it. So I think the fact that we're all in the same boat, we're all on Noah's Ark, I think it helps. Everybody understands, luckily.
Excellent. Well, we're down to our last 3 minutes. And I want to just thank the viewers who have been sending in ideas for future topics. If you haven't yet sent us an idea, you've got about 3 minutes left. So we'll look forward to seeing those. And with just the 3 minutes left, are there any just brief final comments anyone or all of you would care to make?
I would just say that, I was real quick. I would just say that it's very important for all of us, especially as spiritual leaders, to make sure that we are in this season, maybe I would say much more so even than several months ago, taking time to find ways to be built up ourselves within our own relationship with God, because there are so many extra pressures that we are now sort of shouldering and trying to navigate through. And so whatever our rhythms looked like before, we sort of need to almost increase those to be able just to cope. I think that's one of the questions in the title for the webinar was, how do we cope? And I think especially for us as spiritual leaders, how we cope is we continue to lean into that relationship we have with God, and making the time, not just sort of falling into it. If well, I have a little bit of extra time, so I can do a little bit more of that today, but really focusing on putting that in place.
Yeah, I would like to say that at the end of this event, first of all, I'm very thankful, very grateful that we are together, and maybe our viewers noticed this as I did, that there are so many common things between all of us. Beside the theological concept, we are all faith communities. We live in the same place. We face the same challenges. We have the same hopes. That's why there is no other option but to connect with one another, to help one another, to inspire one another. Because all of us, we want to serve our community members, our congregants, with respect, with dignity, with integrity. And we cannot, none of us can do this by, himself or herself as a congregation. There are so many things that we can do together to contribute for the betterment of our larger community and our larger society.
And we have 1 minute left.
I just want to say thank you. I just have to say, over the last few months that I've been able to get to know some of my Muslim neighbors, it has been nothing but an absolute joy. And I just want to say that you guys are my neighbors, and I'm proud to know you, and what a joy it's been to be together with you guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well,
Thank you very much.
gentlemen, thank you all so much. And to all of you who are watching, thank you. We're excited to just be together like this, to hear from one another, to learn from one another. And we are looking forward to doing this again many times in the future. So again, thank you, Imam Taha, Pastor Dean, Pastor Brian, Aasim. Thank you all so much. And with that, God bless you all, and we will look forward to the next time.
And thank you, Noel and Kate.
Thanks, Noel.